I used to believe that mothers could never hate their children, that no matter what, a mother's love was the safest place in the world. Unshakable, warm, eternal. Until the day my mother looked me dead in the eyes and said the words that changed everything. "Lisa, I wish you were never born." That sentence didn't just cut deep, it killed something inside me. It was a stormy Thursday evening, and the rain outside seemed to echo the chaos inside our little house on Rosehill Street. The shouting had been going on for nearly an hour, her voice sharp and fiery, mine trembling and desperate. We'd fought before. Every mother and daughter does. But this one was different. I had just come home from my part-time job at a cafe, soaked from the rain. My shoes squelched as I walked in, and the scent of burnt stew filled the house. Mom was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, a cigarette dangling between her fingers, something she'd taken up again after losing her job. "Where have you been?" she snapped without even looking at me. "At work," I replied, setting down my bag carefully. "You knew I had the evening shift." "Work," she scoffed. "You call that job work? You come home at this hour smelling like coffee and cheap perfume, while your brother's been here studying for college. Tell me, Lisa, when will you do something useful with your life?" There was again the comparison. My brother Jason, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. "I'm trying, Mom," I said softly. "I'm saving for my tuition. I can't go to college if I don't." "Oh, please," she interrupted, slamming the counter. "You're 20 years old and still talking about saving. Jason got a scholarship. Why can't you be more like him?" I felt my throat tighten. I didn't answer. Her voice rose higher, more bitter. "You drain this house dry. I feed you, clothe you, and what do you give me? Nothing but attitude. You walk around like a victim while everyone else is working hard to fix their lives." I blinked back tears. "I didn't ask to be born into this," I whispered. That's when she turned to face me, eyes wild, cigarette trembling between her fingers. And she said it. "I wish you were never born." Silence, the kind that screams. The cigarette dropped to the floor and burned out on the tile, but she didn't notice. Neither did I. For a moment, the only sound in the world was the rain slapping against the window. I stared at her, my own mother, the woman who once sang me lullabies and brushed my hair before school. And I saw no love left in her eyes, only exhaustion, only resentment. Something inside me broke that night, but strangely, something else awakened too. I wiped my tears, stood tall, and said the words I never thought I could say. "Consider me as if I never existed. Live your lives as though there was never a daughter named Lisa." Her mouth opened, but I didn't wait for a reply. I turned and walked out the door into the storm, the rain mixing with my tears. I didn't have a plan. No money, nowhere to go, but I had resolve. That was the night I stopped being the daughter who begged for love and became the woman who would fight to build her own worth, even if no one ever believed in her again. As I stood at the bus stop, shivering, clutching my soaked backpack, I thought about how easy it is for a life to change in a single moment. Sometimes it's not the world that betrays you, it's the people you thought were your world. And from that moment on, my life would never, ever be the same. The rain didn't stop that night. It poured like the heavens themselves were crying for me. Each drop that hit my skin felt like a question I didn't have an answer to. Where will you go, Lisa? What will you do now? Who do you have left? I didn't know. All I knew was that I couldn't go back. Not after those words. I sat on a metal bench at the bus stop, trembling. My thin sweater was soaked through, my hair clinging to my cheeks. My phone battery blinked at 3%. The last message I saw before it died was from my best friend, Mia. "Mia, girl, you okay? Call me when you get home." Home. That word didn't mean anything anymore. The bus finally came, headlights cutting through the rain like knives. I climbed aboard, dropped a few coins into the slot, everything I had left from my cafe tips, and sat in the back. The bus was half empty. A few sleepy faces, a snoring old man, and a young mother rocking her baby. I watched her, the way she kissed her child's forehead even as the baby wailed. And I thought of my mother. How did we get here? Once, she used to laugh with me over burnt pancakes and cheap movies. She used to hold my hand when I was scared. But somewhere between Dad's death and Jason's success, something broke in her. Maybe she didn't hate me. Maybe she hated what her life had become. And I was just the easiest target to blame. When the bus stopped downtown, I got off. The city lights looked blurry through the fog, neon signs flickering, puddles glowing under street lamps. I wandered for hours, dragging my wet sneakers across the pavement, until I reached the old bridge that overlooked the river. It wasn't far from where Dad used to take me when I was little. He'd bring hot chocolate, tell stories about stars, and say, "Lisa, even when people can't see your light, never stop shining." I hadn't thought about that in years. But standing there, cold and alone, I whispered to the wind, "Dad, what do I do now?" The only reply was the sound of the river rushing below. By midnight, I was shivering so hard I could barely think. I found a closed flower shop with a small awning, crawled underneath, and sat there hugging my knees. That's when I saw him. A man, maybe in his 40s, approaching slowly, carrying a paper bag and a thermos. His coat was worn, his beard patchy, but his eyes were kind. He looked at me for a moment, then said softly, "You shouldn't be out here in this weather." I tensed, ready to run, but he didn't come closer. He just set the paper bag down beside me and said, "It's just a sandwich and tea. Don't worry, I won't bother you." And then he walked away. I stared at the bag. My stomach ached. I hadn't eaten since morning. So I opened it, and for the first time in hours, I cried. Not because I was scared, not because I was cold, but because a stranger had shown me more kindness than my own mother had that night. I didn't sleep much. The city never does. But as dawn crept in and the sky turned pale blue, I made a silent promise to myself. I will make something out of this pain. I will build a life so strong, so full, that one day when she sees me again, she'll regret every cruel word she ever spoke. I didn't know how I'd do it, but I knew I would, because that's what my father's daughter would do. The morning light was faint, almost shy, like it didn't want to reveal the wreck I'd become. My clothes were still damp, my lips cracked, and my stomach growled in quiet protest. The paper bag beside me was empty now. Only crumbs of the sandwich and a faint warmth of the tea remained. But a stranger's small act of kindness had done something the food couldn't. It had lit a tiny spark inside me. It was the first time in hours I'd felt human again that I stood, stretched my stiff legs, and looked around the waking city. Shopkeepers were opening their stores. Buses rumbled past, and people hurried along the sidewalks, oblivious to the girl on the flower shop awning who had just lost everything. I could have gone to Mia's house, I thought, but she lived with her parents, and I didn't want to answer questions I wasn't ready for. Besides, I was determined not to beg anyone for help. Not again. I had made a vow last night to disappear from their lives completely. No calls, no messages, no crying friends who'd pity me. If I was going to rebuild myself, it had to start here. As I walked aimlessly down the street, I passed the same man who had left the sandwich. He was sitting near a bench now, reading a newspaper, a small cart beside him filled with bottles and scrap metal. He looked up and smiled slightly. "You're still here." I hesitated. "Yeah, I didn't really have anywhere else to go." He nodded, like he understood more than I was saying. Happens. You'd be surprised how many people end up on these streets not because they're bad, but because they trusted the wrong people or the wrong love. His words hit me. I didn't trust the wrong love. I was born from it. "What's your name?" I asked. "Earl," he replied, holding out his hand. "You?" "Lisa." "Well, Lisa," he said, "you look like someone who doesn't belong out here. But since you are, you'd better learn how to survive it." I frowned slightly. "Survive it?" He chuckled softly. "City life doesn't care if you're kind or broken. You either learn the rhythm or get swept away." Over the next few hours, Earl showed me things I'd never imagined I'd need to know. Where to find a free meal, which shelters were safe, and which alleys to avoid at night. He spoke with the calm of someone who'd seen the world chew people up and spit them out, yet still believed kindness wasn't weakness. At one point, as we walked past a bakery, he stopped suddenly. "You said you used to work at a cafe?" I nodded. "Yeah, Until yesterday. Go in there, he said, pointing to the small bakery across the street. Ask for Mrs. Dunbar. She's rough around the edges, but fair. She helped my niece get a job once. Tell her you can make coffee and clean tables. What if she says no? He smiled. Then you ask again tomorrow. And the next day, life doesn't hand things easy to those who've been thrown away, Lisa. You'll have to prove your worth more than what they see. His words sank deep. I walked into the bakery, my heart pounding. The smell of fresh bread and cinnamon filled the air, making my stomach twist again with hunger. Behind the counter stood a plump woman with gray hair pulled into a bun, her apron dusted with flour. She looked up sharply. We're not hiring. I froze. Please, ma'am, I just need... I said, we're not hiring. She cut me off, turning back to knead dough. I swallowed hard, remembering Earl's voice in my head. Then you ask again tomorrow. So I didn't argue. I just said quietly, thank you anyway. I'll come back tomorrow. She looked up, surprised, but didn't apply. I turned to leave, feeling both defeated and strangely determined. When I returned to the park, Earl was waiting, sipping from a paper cup. She turned you down, didn't she? Yeah. Good, he said with a grin. Now you've got a reason to show up again. That night, I slept on a bench near the park, under a thin blanket Earl lent me. The sky above was clear for the first time in days, stars faintly glowing through the city haze. And for the first time since leaving home, I didn't feel entirely alone. As I closed my eyes, I whispered a silent promise to my father again. I'll make it, Dad. I don't know how yet, but I'll make it. And one day, she'll see what she threw away. The next morning, the world felt a little lighter, maybe because I finally had a purpose. I woke up to the chirping of pigeons and the faint smell of coffee drifting from somewhere nearby. My blanket was damp with dew and my body ached from sleeping on a hard bench. But I didn't care. Today, I was going back to that bakery. Earl was already awake when I found him. He was sorting through his car of recyclables with a quiet rhythm, humming an old song that sounded like something from the 80s. You're up early, he said, not looking up. I told her I'd come back, I replied, brushing my hair with my fingers. He grinned, showing a missing tooth. That's the spirit. Just remember, don't let pride talk louder than hunger. Sometimes people say no because they're testing if you'll quit. His words stuck with me as I made my way to the bakery again. When I reached Dunbar's Bread and Brew, the morning rush had already begun. The smell of fresh croissants and cinnamon rolls hit me like a wave, and for a moment, I almost forgot my situation. I stood by the door, nervous. My clothes were still wrinkled, and my hair wasn't exactly employee-ready. But I reminded myself I had nothing left to lose. I stepped inside. Mrs. Dunbar stood behind the counter again, her hands dusted with flour, shouting orders to a teenage boy who was clearly terrified of her. When she saw me, her eyebrows shot up. You again? Yes, ma'am, I said quickly. You told me yesterday you weren't hiring, but I wanted to ask again. I can make coffee, clean table, handle customers. I'll work hard. Just give me one chance. She sighed heavily, wiping her hands on her apron. You homeless? The question hit hard, but I didn't flinch. For now, I said honestly, but I won't be forever. For a moment, she just studied me. Then she muttered under her breath, You remind me of my daughter when she was your age, stubborn as a mule. She finally waved her hand. Fine, you can start by cleaning that mess in the back. If you don't complain and do it right, maybe I'll think about keeping you. My heart almost burst. Thank you, ma'am. You won't regret it. The next few hours were brutal. The mess in the back was an understatement. It looked like someone had waged war with flour and lost. But I scrubbed, swept, and wiped every inch of it until the metal shells gleamed. When I was done, Mrs. Dunbar peeked in and raised an eyebrow. You did all that? Yes, ma'am. She nodded slowly. You hungry? I hesitated. A little. Without another word, she handed me a warm croissant and a small cup of coffee. The first real breakfast I'd had in 2 days. Eat, then mop the front. We open in 10. And just like that, I had my first job again. The next few weeks were a blur of exhaustion and small victories. I worked from dawn till late afternoon, cleaning, brewing coffee, serving customers, learning how to bake under Mrs. Dunbar's sharp supervision. She was strict, sometimes even harsh, but she was fair. She didn't treat me like charity. She treated me like someone with potential, and that made me want to prove myself even more. When the bakery closed one night, she sat me down with a cup of tea. "You got good hands, girl," she said. "You work like someone who's running from something." I looked down, silent. "I'm not running," I whispered. "I'm rebuilding." She gave me a long look, then nodded. "Then make sure you build something worth remembering." Those words sank deep. By the end of the month, I'd earned enough to rent a small room in a shared apartment on the edge of town. It wasn't much, just a single bed, a cracked mirror, and a window that squeaked when you open it. But it was mine to my own chance. He chuckled softly. "You think strength means you don't get tired? No, child. Strength means you keep moving even when you are." He reached into his coat pocket and handed me a small, worn coin. One side was scratched, the other engraved with a single word: faith. "I've carried this for 20 years, he said, "through war, loss, and nights colder than this one. It reminds me that no storm lasts forever. Now it's yours." I stared at the coin, my fingers trembling. "Earl, I can't take this." "You can," he said firmly, "because you need it more than I do now." For the first time in days, tears filled my eyes, but they weren't from despair. They were from something smaller, quieter, hope. We sat there for a while, just listening to the river. Then he said, "So, what are you going to do next?" I sighed. "I don't know. Mrs. Dunbar thinks I'm a thief. Nobody's going to hire me now." "Then you prove her wrong," he said simply. "You don't hide. You don't run. You show the world who you are." Again, he stood, brushing off his coat. "Tomorrow morning, you go back to that bakery. Don't yell, don't beg. Just stand there, calm as the river, and tell her the truth. If she listens, good. If not, you walk away knowing you stayed honest. That's what separates survivors from quitters." I swallowed hard. What if she doesn't believe me? He smiled. "Then life's got another door waiting. But you'll never find it if you're too busy staring at the one that closed." Before he left, he looked at me one last time and said, "You got something rare, Lisa. Most people break and never come back. But every time you shatter, you build yourself stronger. Don't you ever forget that." And then he disappeared into the night, his footsteps fading against the sound of the rushing river. I stayed under the bridge until dawn, holding the little coin in my hand. The word faith glimmered faintly in the morning light. Something shifted inside me. No more pity. No more, "Why me?" If life wanted to test me, fine. This time, I'd be ready. The next morning, I walked back into Dunbar's bread and brew. My hand was shaking, but my heart was steady. Mrs. Dunbar looked up the moment she saw me. Her eyes narrowed. "You've got some nerve showing your face here." I took a deep breath. "I know what you think, and I understand why. But I didn't steal from you, Mrs. Dunbar. Someone set me up. I don't want your job back. I just want you to know the truth." She said nothing, just stared. Then I turned to leave. But before I reached the door, a voice came from behind the counter. "Mrs. Dunbar?" It was a delivery boy, young, nervous, his face pale. He held out a small brown envelope. I found this in Ethan's locker. It has your marked bills inside." The entire bakery went silent. Mrs. Dunbar opened the envelope with trembling hands, and her face turned from confusion to horror. She looked up at me, tears glistening in her eyes. "Lisa," I just stood there, heart pounding. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." I smiled faintly, though my chest ached. "I know, ma'am. I didn't come for an apology. I just wanted you to know who I really am." She wiped her eyes and stepped forward. "You're not just honest, girl. You're strong. Stronger than I ever was." And just like that, my second chance was returned. But this time, I didn't just go back to work. I started dreaming bigger. Because Earl was right. Fire doesn't destroy steel. It forges it. And I was just beginning to discover what I was made of. Title: My own mom said, "I wish you were never born." I stood tall and said, "Consider me as if I never existed." Part 8. The dream that changed my future. That night, after the long day at the bakery, after Mrs. Dunbar's tearful apology, after I'd scrubbed my hands clean of flour and forgiveness, I lay in my tiny rented room staring at the ceiling. The coin Earl had given me sat on my bedside table, glinting faintly under the soft yellow light. Faith. It was strange how one word could hold such power. For the first time in months, I didn't cry myself to sleep. But that night, something else happened. Something that would change the course of my life forever. It started as a dream. I was standing in a field of golden wheat, the wind brushing softly against my face. In front of me stood a little girl, barefoot, her dress torn, her face smudged with dirt. She looked exactly like me when I was 7. "Why are you crying?" I asked her. She looked up with those same brown eyes I used to see in the mirror. "Because I don't know who loves me." The words cut deep. My heart twisted. I reached for her hand and said softly, "You don't need them to love you. You just have to love you." And suddenly, the little girl smiled, a pure, radiant smile. And before my eyes, she began to glow, her small figure dissolving into light. When I woke up, I was crying, but this time not from pain. It felt like a release. That dream, it wasn't just a dream. It was a message. The next morning, I walked to the bakery early. The sun hadn't risen yet, and the streets were still half asleep. Mrs. Dunbar greeted me with warm bread and warmer eyes. "You didn't have to come this early, Lisa." I smiled faintly. I couldn't sleep. "My mind's been busy." "Busy's good," she said. "Busy means hope." She handed me a fresh loaf. "Eat. You need strength." As I ate, I looked around the shop. The trays of pastries, the smell of cinnamon, the little chalkboard where customers wrote kind notes. I suddenly realized something. This place wasn't just a bakery. It was home for lost souls like me. That's when the dream came rushing back. The little girl, her tears, her question, and an idea sparked inside me. What if I could create a place for others like me? A place where people with broken hearts and broken homes could feel seen. I didn't have money. I didn't have connections, but I had faith. After work, I stayed behind and cleaned up. When the shop was quiet, I approached Mrs. Dunbar. "Can I ask you something?" She looked up from the register. "Of course, dear. What if we started something small? Like, every Friday, we give leftover bread and coffee to anyone who needs it, not just the homeless, anyone who's struggling." Her eyes softened. "That's a beautiful thought, Lisa. We could call it the Friday table. No questions, no judgments, just kindness." Mrs. Dunbar was silent for a long moment. Then she smiled, tears gathering in her eyes. "Let's do it." And just like that, the Friday table was born. The first week, only 4 people came: an old man, a single mother, and 2 college students. The next week, 10. By the 3rd week, the bakery was full. People brought flowers, songs, stories, laughter. Even Earl showed up once, smiling proudly from the corner, clutching a warm cup of coffee. The small shop became a beacon of warmth. And for the first time in my life, I felt needed, not for what I could do, but for who I was. One Friday evening, as I was locking up, Mrs. Dunbar touched my shoulder. "Lisa, you've done something extraordinary here. You turned a moment of pain into something that feeds souls." Her words filled my chest with quiet pride. That night, I looked at Earl's coin again. The word faith seemed to shine brighter than ever. I whispered, "Maybe this is what you meant, Earl. Maybe this is what being forged really feels like." But little did I know, the peace I had built, the fragile beauty of the Friday table, was about to be tested in ways I could never have imagined. Because just when I thought the past was behind me, a familiar voice returned, a voice I hadn't heard in years. One cold morning, as I opened the bakery doors, a woman stood there, trembling, holding an old leather purse. Her eyes, tired, hollow, but unmistakable, met mine. "Lisa," my breath caught. It was my mother. The world went silent when I saw her. The smell of fresh bread and roasted coffee vanished. All I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat, loud, uneven, almost trembling. She looked thinner, older, her once dark hair now streaked with gray. The woman who once told me she wished I'd never been born now stood in front of me, fragile, small, and almost lost. "Mom," I whispered. Her lips quivered. "Lisa." The name left her mouth like it burned. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Mrs. Dunbar peeked from behind the counter, sensing something heavy in the air. "Lisa, do you know her?" I swallowed hard. "Yes," I said quietly. "That's my mother." Mrs. Dunbar, ever gentle, nodded and stepped back. "Take your time, dear. I'll handle the front." I led my mother to the small table near the corner, the same one Earl had once sat at. She clutched her purse tightly, as if afraid it might vanish too. I sat across from her, waiting. Finally, she broke the silence. "You look different." I nodded. "A lot has changed." Her eyes darted around the bakery. "This is your place?" I smiled faintly. "I work here, but the Friday table, that's mine." She frowned. "The what?" "Every Friday, we serve anyone who needs food. Free. No questions asked." She looked down at her hands, fidgeting. "Still helping people, huh? Even after everything?" I studied her carefully. "Why are you here, Mom?" Her shoulders sagged, and for a second, I saw something I'd never seen in her before: defeat. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. "Your father left. The house was taken. I've been staying with a neighbor, but she can't keep me anymore." I froze. "You're saying Dad left you?" She nodded, eyes welling with tears. "He said he was tired of everything. He blamed me for how things turned out." For a long moment, I just sat there, stunned. The woman who once looked untouchable, powerful, cruel, now sat before me, broken by the same kind of pain she once gave me. A storm of emotions swirled inside me. Part of me wanted to scream, "You deserve this." But another part, the part Earl helped me rebuild, stayed quiet. "Mom," I said softly, "you told me once that you wished I was never born." She flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Lisa, do you know what those words did to me?" Her voice cracked. "I was angry, Lost. I didn't mean it." "But you said it," I said, my voice trembling. "And when you did, I believed you. For years, I lived like someone who shouldn't exist. I begged for love, for a sign that I mattered. And when you turned your back, I promised myself I'd never need you again." She covered her face with her hands and sobbed. "I know, Lisa. I know, and I've paid for it every day since. I was proud, selfish. I didn't know how to love you right. I pushed you away because I hated myself." Her words hit me like thunder, truthful, raw, and so late. For a while, neither of us spoke. The bakery buzzed softly in the background, the hum of the coffee machine, the chatter of customers, but our corner felt like a different world. Finally, I asked, "So, what do you need from me?" She looked up, eyes red. "Forgiveness and a place to stay." The silence that followed was heavy. Part of me wanted to say no, to walk away, just like she had done to me. But then I thought of Earl's coin. Faith. Faith wasn't just about hope. It was about grace. I took a deep breath. "You can stay with me," I said quietly. "For now." Her eyes widened. "You mean it?" I nodded. "But this time, Mom, it's going to be different. I'm not that scared little girl anymore. I'll help you, but I won't let you hurt me again." She nodded slowly, shame and gratitude tangled in her expression. "I understand, Lisa. I don't deserve this, but thank you." That night, when she came home with me, my small apartment suddenly felt even smaller, but strangely warmer. She moved slowly, carefully, as if afraid to touch anything. And as I watched her settle in, something inside me shifted again. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't for her. It was for me, because letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant freeing myself from the weight of past. As she fell asleep on the couch, I sat by the window, holding Earl's coin. "You were right," I whispered into the night. Fire doesn't destroy steel. And for the first time in my life, I didn't see my mother as my enemy. I saw her as a broken soul, just like I once was. But I didn't know that forgiving her was just the beginning. Because soon, something unexpected was going to happen. Something that would test every ounce of strength, faith, and love I'd learned to build. Something that would bring Earl back into my life. In a way I could never have imagined. The following morning, sunlight streamed through my window, golden and soft, as if the world itself was trying to whisper peace into my life. But peace, I've learned, doesn't last forever. It comes and goes like a tide. I woke early, made breakfast for my mother, and then walked to the bakery. The streets were quiet, still damp from last night's rain. I could smell the earth, fresh and clean. When I arrived, Mrs. Dunbar greeted me with her usual smile, but there was something else in her eyes that day, a hint of curiosity or worry. "Lisa," she said gently, "someone's been asking about you." I frowned. "Asking about me? Who?" She reached under the counter and handed me a folded note. It was written in rough, hurried handwriting, the letters uneven but familiar. "Meet me under the bridge tonight. It's important." My heart skipped a beat. Earl. That night, after closing the bakery, I wrapped myself in my old brown coat and walked toward the river. The same river where I once cried my heart out, and where Earl once gave me hope. The bridge looked the same, cold, quiet, half lit by the moon. And there he was, sitting on the same spot, staring at the water. But something about him was different. He looked weaker, thinner. His usual warmth seemed dimmed, replaced by a quiet sadness. "Earl," I said softly. He turned, and a slow smile spread across his weathered face. "Lisa, you came." I sat beside him, just like before. "Of course I did. What's going on? You said it was important." He took a deep breath, his fingers fidgeting with the hem of his coat. "There's something I never told you. About me. About why I was under that bridge the night we met." I tilted my head. "You said you lost everything." He nodded slowly. "That's true, but I didn't just lose my home or my money. I lost my family." I froze. "Your family?" He looked at me then, his eyes glistening under the moonlight. "I had a daughter, Lisa. Her name was Anna. She was about your age." My heart tightened. "What happened to her?" He swallowed hard. "I was a truck driver, gone most nights. I worked hard to give her and her mother a good life, but I was never really there. One winter night, there was a fire in our apartment. I wasn't home." His voice broke. "They didn't make it." A cold wind brushed against us. I felt tears sting my eyes. "Earl." He looked away. I ran from everything after that. The house, the job, the memories. I blamed myself. I told myself I didn't deserve to live better than the people I failed. I reached out and held his hand. It trembled under mine. "You gave me faith when I had none," I said softly. "Even when you had every reason to give up. That's not failure, Earl. That's redemption." He smiled faintly. "You remind me of her, Lisa. That's why I helped you. You've got her fire, the same stubborn kindness." For a long moment, we sat there in silence, the sound of the river flowing beneath us like a lullaby for the broken. Then he said quietly, "Lisa, there's another reason I asked you here. I'm sick." The word hit me like a stone. "Sick? What do you mean?" "Doctor says it's my heart. I don't have much time left." My breath caught. No, Earl. There has to be something." He shook his head gently. "It's okay. I've had a good run. But I can't leave this world without doing something right. I don't have much, but I want you to take what I do have." He handed me a small, worn envelope. Inside was a folded paper and a key. "What is this?" "It's the key to a small storage unit downtown. Everything I ever owned before I lost it all is in there. Tools, old books, photos, and some money. Not much, but enough to help you keep that bakery dream alive. You'll make something good out of it. I know you will." Tears filled my eyes. "Earl, I can't take this. It's yours." He smiled softly. "I've been holding on to ghosts for too long. Maybe it's time I let them rest and let you live." I cried that night, holding his hand as the river whispered beneath us. Earl wasn't just a friend. He was the father I never had, the kind of love I'd searched for all my life. When I finally walked home, the envelope clutched tightly in my hand, I looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, Earl, for everything." The next day, I went to the storage unit. When I opened it, dust swirled around me like old memories waking up. Inside were boxes labeled Anna, Home, and Dreams. But on the top shelf sat a smaller box with my name on it. Lisa. My breath caught as I opened it. Inside was a coin, the same one he'd given me. Only now, the other side had something new etched into the metal, tiny but clear. Keep going. That day, I promised myself I would. I'd keep the Friday table alive. I'd help others the way Earl helped me. And I'd live, not just survive. But life, it seems, wasn't done shaping me yet. Because just when I thought the story had reached its peace, a letter arrived at the bakery a week later. It was from a law firm, and it said, "Ms. Lisa Adams, you've been listed as a sole beneficiary of Mr. Earl Thompson's estate." The morning the letter arrived, I was just wiping down the counter at Dunbar's Bread and Brew, humming softly under my breath. The air smelled of sugar and cinnamon, the scent of peace I had fought so hard to earn. Mrs. Dunbar handed me the envelope with raised brows. "Looks official," she said, adjusting her glasses. "You in trouble, girl?" I smiled faintly. At this point, Mrs. Dunbar, I don't think life can throw me anything worse than what it already has. She chuckled. "Careful, Lisa. Don't challenge fate. It has a sense of humor." But when I turned the envelope over and saw the bold print, Thompson and Graves Law Associates, my breath caught. Thompson, Earl. I tore it open carefully, my hands trembling. Inside was a typed letter, neat and formal, but every word sank deep into my chest. "Dear Ms. Adams, we regret to inform you of the passing of Mr. Earl Thompson. He has named you as the sole beneficiary of his estate, consisting of personal belongings, a small property, and financial holdings. Please contact our office to arrange for the transfer and reading of the will. Sincerely, James Graves, attorney at law." My heart dropped. I froze, unable to breathe. Even though I knew this day would come, I wasn't ready. The bakery faded around me. The chatter, the clinking cups, the smell of coffee, it all blurred into a hollow silence. "Lisa?" Mrs. Dunbar's voice broke through the haze. "What is it?" I swallowed hard. "He's gone." She set down the tray she was holding. "Earl." I nodded slowly, the tears I'd been holding back for days finally spilling down. That night, I sat at my window, the letter clutched in my hand, and whispered, "You kept your promise, Earl. You gave me one last lesson, didn't you? Because even in death, he was still guiding me. He once told me, fire doesn't destroy steel, it forges it." And now, it felt like he was testing how strong I had really become. 2 days later, I went to the lawyer's office. It was a small place, tucked between a tailor shop and a florist. The bell above the door chimed softly as I walked in. A man in his late 40s with kind eyes stood to greet me. "Ms. Adams, I'm James Graves. Please come in." He led me into a modest office. On the desk sat a wooden box, worn but polished, tied neatly with a red ribbon. "Mr. Thompson left this for you personally," Mr. Graves said, sliding it forward. "He also requested that I read this short letter to you." I nodded, holding my breath. The lawyer unfolded a single sheet of paper and began to read. "Lisa, if you're hearing this, it means I've gone home. Don't cry for me. I had a long life, and I got to see something beautiful before I left. You becoming the woman you were always meant to be." Inside the box is a deed to a small piece of land I bought years ago outside the city. I used to dream of turning it into a little cafe by the lake. I couldn't make it happen, but maybe you can. I think the world could use more of your kind of light. Don't forget, keep going. Always, Earl. I pressed a hand to my mouth as tears streamed down my face. A cafe by the lake. His dream, now mine. When I opened the box, there was the deed, a few old photographs of a woman and a little girl, his wife and daughter, and a leather-bound notebook titled Dreams of Tomorrow. Inside were sketches, recipes, notes about kindness, and words scribbled across one page that made me weep. If you ever find someone who's lost, feed them. Food is love in disguise. That night, I went to the river, the same spot on the bridge, and I spoke softly into the dark. You did it, Earl. You're still feeding souls. And I'll make sure your dream never dies. The wind blew gently through the trees, and for a second, I swore I could feel him there, smiling. Within a month, I used the money he left and the savings I'd built from the bakery to visit the land by the lake. It was quiet, breathtaking. A mirror of the sky rippling in the water, surrounded by wildflowers and tall grass. I stood there with my mother beside me. "This is beautiful, Lisa," she said softly. "He must have cared for you deeply." I smiled faintly. He was family, maybe not by blood, but by heart. She nodded, eyes glistening. "I'd like to help if you'll let me." I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in years, I saw not the woman who broke me, but the one who was trying. "All right, Mom," I said quietly, "let's build it together." And that's how it began. Brick by brick, smile by smile, pain by forgiveness. We built Earl's Haven, a lakeside cafe and shelter for anyone who needed warmth, food, or just someone to listen. The Friday table became our tradition, and every wall of that cafe held a piece of both our stories, mine, Mom's, and Earl's. But on the grand opening day, something happened that I'll never forget. As the crowd gathered and the ribbon was cut, a little boy walked up to me holding a coin. "Ma'am," he said, "I found this by the lake." He opened his palm. The same coin. Faith. I smiled through tears, whispering, "You're still here, aren't you, Earl?" The sun shimmered over the calm surface of the lake, the water glowing like liquid gold. The gentle breeze carried the scent of baked bread, coffee, and hope. After months of sweat, tears, and rebuilding, Earl's Haven finally stood complete. A warm, two-story cafe wrapped in wooden charm and surrounded by flowers that swayed in the wind. Above the door hung a simple sign carved from oak. Earl's Haven, where hearts find home. That morning, I stood out front with my mother, hands trembling, eyes wet with disbelief. It wasn't just a cafe. It was the ending of one chapter and the beginning of another. "You did it, Lisa," my mother whispered. "You really did it." I smiled faintly. "No, we did. And so did Earl. He's here, in every brick, every chair, every loaf of bread." When the clock struck 9, people began arriving, neighbors, old friends, customers from Dunbar's bakery, and even strangers who had heard about the Friday table. Mrs. Dunbar was there too, carrying a basket full of pastries. "Couldn't miss your big day, girl," she said proudly, her eyes glistening. Even the mayor showed up, drawn by the story that had spread quietly through town. The story of the young woman who built hope from heartbreak. But what touched me most wasn't the crowd or the speeches. It was a line of people waiting outside, people who didn't come to buy, but to belong. Some wore worn coats, some carried tired eyes, and I knew exactly what that felt like. So before the doors opened, I took the microphone and said, "This isn't just a cafe. It's a place for anyone who's ever felt forgotten, broken, or lost." Earl once told me that fire doesn't destroy steel, it forges it. And today, I want everyone here to know, you are not broken. You are becoming. The crowd grew quiet, then erupted in applause. My mother stood beside me, tears streaming down her face. "I'm proud of you, Lisa," she whispered. "So proud." I turned to her, smiling softly. "That means more than you know, Mom." And for the first time since I was a little girl, I hugged her, truly hugged her, and felt no bitterness left in my heart. The first few hours were a blur of laughter, music, and joy. Kids played by the lake. Old men read newspapers under the shade. Strangers shared stories over cups of coffee and plates of warm bread. I could almost see Earl sitting at one of the corner tables, smiling, his cap tilted, his hands wrapped around a steaming mug. And that's when it happened. The little boy from the crowd, the one who had found the coin earlier, tugged at my sleeve. "Miss Lisa," he said shyly, "there's something written on the back of the coin now." I frowned, kneeling down. "What do you mean?" He handed it to me. The word faith still glimmered on one side, but when I turned it over, my heart stopped. There were faint, newly engraved words. You kept going. My breath caught. I looked around at the laughing faces, the sunshine, my mother's smile, and whispered to the air, I did, Earl. I really did. A soft wind brushed my hair, almost like a hand patting my shoulder. And in that moment, I knew he was there, not gone, just home. As the day faded into evening, the cafe lights twinkled like stars. People lingered long after closing time, their laughter spilling into the night. My mother leaned beside me on the porch railing. You think he'd be proud? She asked. I smiled, staring at the glowing sign. He already is. She nodded, looking up at the sky. And your father? He called me last week. He's sorry, Lisa. He wants to see you. My heart skipped. After all this time? He said, he's been following your story in the papers. He saw what you built here. He wants to make things right. I turned back toward the lake, my reflection shimmering beside the stars. Maybe, I whispered, it's time. Because forgiveness, I had learned, wasn't a single act. It was a journey. And maybe this journey still had one more step. That night, after everyone left, I locked the cafe doors and walked to the lakeshore alone. The moon's reflection rippled on the water, calm, endless, peaceful. I tossed a coin into the lake, watching the ripples spread outward. Thank you, Earl, I said softly, for saving me when no one else would, for teaching me how to live. The water shimmered, catching the moonlight, and in the whisper of the wind, I heard it again, faint but certain. Keep going, Lisa. It was a calm Sunday morning when the call came. My mother was in the kitchen, humming softly, something I never imagined I'd hear her do again. The scent of pancakes and vanilla drifted through the small apartment when my phone began to buzz. I froze when I saw the name. Dad. For a long moment, I couldn't move. The man whose silence had wounded me as deeply as my mother's words. The man who stood by when I needed him most. He was calling. Lisa, Mom said quietly from across the room. You don't have to answer if you're not ready. But I was ready, not because I forgot what he did, but because I finally understood who I had become despite it. I pressed the phone to my ear. Hello? There was a shaky pause. Then, his voice, older, rougher, heavy with regret. Lisa, I didn't think you'd pick up. I almost didn't. He sighed. I don't deserve to ask for your time, but could I see you? Just once. Please. My heart raced. I looked out the window at the lake, the same one where I'd thrown Earl's coin, and whispered, okay, but not to talk about the past. Just to say goodbye, or maybe hello. We met at Earl's Haven that afternoon. It was quiet. The cafe closed on Sundays, sunlight filtering through the glass, painting the floor in gold. He walked in slowly, shoulders bent, holding his hat nervously. His hair was white now, and his eyes, those same dark eyes I'd inherited, carried years of guilt. When our eyes met, time seemed to stop. You look so much like your mother did when we met, he said softly. And I got your stubbornness, I replied, managing a faint smile. He chuckled weakly, then grew serious. Lisa, I came to tell you, I was a coward. When things got bad, I shut down. Your mother was hurting, and instead of protecting you, I ran from both of you. His voice cracked. I watched from afar, you know. I saw your name in the papers, the cafe, the Friday table, the way you help people. You became everything I wasn't brave enough to be. I stared at him, torn between anger and understanding. You watched me suffer, Dad. Do you know how hard it was to think both of you didn't care? He nodded, eyes glistening. I know, and not a day passes that I don't regret it. I lost years with you, Lisa. Years I can never get back. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't heavy this time. It was cleansing. Then I said, quietly, you know, I used to think forgiveness was weakness, but I learned its strength. Earl taught me that. He frowned. Earl, a man who gave me faith when I had nothing. He left me this cafe, and a lesson I'll never forget, that love isn't about who stays. It's about who shows up when it matters most. My father lowered his head. Then let me show up now, Lisa. if it's not too late. I smiled through tears. It's never too late to start over. We talked for hours that day about the past, the things left unsaid, the years lost. He told me about the sleepless nights, the letters he never sent, the mistakes he couldn't undo. And as he spoke, I realized something beautiful. I didn't need an apology anymore. What I needed was peace. When he finally stood to leave, he paused by the door and looked back. "Lisa," he said, voice trembling, "I'm proud of you for surviving us, for becoming who you are." A tear slipped down my cheek. "You gave me life, Dad. Maybe that was your purpose all along." He smiled, a small, broken, but real smile, and walked out into the sunlight. That evening, I closed Earl's Haven early and walked down to the lake once more. The wind rippled gently, carrying whispers of the world beyond. I sat on the dock, watching the sunset bleed into the water, and whispered, "I forgive you, Mom. I forgive you, Dad. And I forgive the girl I once was, the one who thought she'd never be enough." The wind brushed my face softly, almost like an embrace. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole. Weeks later, the cafe was busier than ever. The Friday table had grown into a community tradition. People came not just for food, but for healing. My mother often helped serve. My father visited every Sunday, fixing chairs or brewing coffee. We weren't a perfect family. We never would be, but we were trying, and that was enough. One afternoon, as I wiped down the counter, I noticed something shimmering on the windowsill. It was Earl's coin, the one I'd thrown into the lake, still wet, glinting in the sun. I picked it up, my hands trembling. This time, 3 words had appeared, faint but clear. "You are home." I smiled, tears slipping down my cheeks. "Yes, Earl," I whispered. "I am." That night, as laughter filled the cafe and the lake reflected the stars, I realized something profound. Every heartbreak, every rejection, every cruel word had led me here, to this peace, this purpose, this life. And I finally understood I was never unwanted. I was simply becoming the woman I was born to be.